All right, hello YouTube, and we are back with the Percy Jackson series on the Eric Reviews channel. And I, again, want to point out, this is the second time I've had to re-record this video. Me and my friend have recorded an hour-long video, and for some reason, my headset had defaulted back to my computer audio, so I didn't capture his audio, so I'm re-recording this. So I apologize for, it's probably not going to be as long or as in-depth, because it's just very frustrating to have to redo this video, but we're going to be talking about episode 3 and everything I liked, everything I didn't like, and just going through the episode and breaking down what I thought about the episode. And so I want to start off with just my general thoughts. So what did I think of the episode? And for me personally, it really felt like more of the same when it came to the things I liked and things I didn't like. For me personally, if you watched either of my videos when it came to the everything I liked about episode 1 and 2 and episode I didn't like in episode 1 or 2, it's going to feel the same. So to look at episode 3, this episode was really weird for me because I felt like the first half, I didn't enjoy it much. I had a lot of complaints, things I was questioning in the first half. And then the second half I thought was really good. I think some of the strongest moments of the show so far was in the second half of the episode. So it's really weird because I think the first 15 minutes, I just was almost checked out of the episode by just how they were depicting especially the character of Annabeth, but certain things that were going on. And so that's how I felt about that part of it. But the good stuff, I really liked the depiction of the character of Medusa. I liked the character building again for Percy. I thought they did some good things with Grover. They started to improve him. I think they started to give him more to do, just in general. And so those things I thought were positive. So broadly, I'd give the episode around a 7 again. I think it suffers from the same things that the first 2 episodes suffered from. And hopefully, you know, given where this episode ends, we're heading in the right path. But I don't think this episode accomplished what I think it needed to do with Annabeth's character specifically. So let's get into the episode. So this episode in the first 15 minutes is really about establishing them leaving, right? Who Percy is going to choose to be his companions on this journey. And so that's kind of what it's about really for those first 15 minutes and kind of their journey on this bus leaving Camp Half-Blood. And so the notable things, again, I went in more depth with the recording that I had done before. I'm not going to do that again. It's just, I don't have the time to, do a whole nother hour video. But the important things to take away from here is that Percy ends up choosing Annabeth and Grover. And they're done for a very specific reason because of this prophecy that Percy does in the beginning. Because of this prophecy that Percy gets from the oracles at the very beginning. And so right away, I wanted to say, we start off with this scene of the oracles, and I think the actor who plays Percy did a fantastic job in this episode specifically. I think he's been good so far, but this was a standout episode for him acting-wise. There was a lot more that the directors gave for him to do on his emotional range and show himself as an actor. And so I think he did a great performance, especially in this first opening shot. All of the emotions that he should be feeling, it's really apparent in just his facial emotions. But we get this scene with the Oracle, and I'm specifically referencing this scene because it's the opener, but it's terrible in my opinion. I don't know if you guys liked it. It was very Marvel humor-esque, but in the book, this scene with the Oracle is very suspenseful. It's very tension-building. It's really foreboding and foreshadowing the end of the story. And in the show, they go with this whole idea that Gabe is telling the prophecy to Percy, and then you're just sitting here, it's like, I can't take this seriously. This is stupid. And so to me, it was one of those Thor Love and Thunder moments where it's using comedy, but it takes away from the tension of the scene. It takes away what really the importance of the scene is supposed to be. And so I hated this open. It's just one of those things where it's like you have a slam dunk that is set up for this Oracle scene to set the episode up, and it falls flat. Like, yes, it still has weight for the character of Percy, and it still has things that impacts the rest of the story, but it doesn't hit the same. They did not hit in the execution of this scene specifically. And so, again, that leads us to why Percy ends up picking the characters he does. He picks Grover because he knows he can trust Grover beyond a doubt. Even though, again, there is an underlying interesting point here because Grover has already betrayed Percy in episode 1, getting him kicked out of the academy. At this point, because Grover has told him the truth about his mother, he trusts Grover. And that makes a lot of sense. Percy is not familiar with a lot of people here. He's not been here at this camp very long. It makes sense that he would pick someone that he could trust quite a lot. given that what we know of the prophecy, and originally that was something else that I had a problem with. There was actually two problems that I had with that the episode fixed by the end of it, so I didn't have a problem with it by the end. But one was like, why would Percy choose Annabeth? And that's a nice point we get at the end, is like, he knows that if someone's going to betray him, is that he could never really be friends with Annabeth, so she could never be the friend that betrays him. So it was kind of that idea. So it was an interesting point of why Percy would choose Annabeth, because up to this point, like I talked about, and I would really highly recommend watching episode 1 and 2's review, as it's very important to understanding my thoughts on the show. Annabeth up to this point has been awful. She's been a character that's been antagonistic to Percy. Every time she's on screen, I hate her, and she is my favorite character of the book. She's awful so far in the series. And so I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, how does Percy make this connection with Annabeth to want her to go on the quest? Because up to right now, it doesn't make any sense, right? Given what the show's done so far, it makes more sense that Luke would be the character to go with Percy, because they have established a pretty good relationship, it seems like, so far. And so that doesn't end up happening, right? We see he picks Annabeth, and so far at the end, again, that gets cleared up. And so we also kind of see the second half of the prophecy, which I was wondering when they were going to reveal. They reveal that when Grover is chosen. I like I like when they choose to put the rest of the prophecy in there, given the history between Grover and Percy. And so that's a great point of it. We get a little bit more of Grover being a character. It's very, it's surface level on Grover's choosing when it comes to him, like questioning why Percy would even do such a thing, because Grover doesn't feel worthy of being picked for the quest. And so that's good for Grover's character. And we do get more of Grover as we go forward in the story, which I enjoy. We're finally starting to at least get something with the character. But the problem is, and I won't address this too much throughout the rest of kind of the early part of the episode, is that Grover still feels like this character that is very similar to like an NPC in a video game, where he's narrating what's going on, or he's narrating exposition to you. If any of you guys have played God of War and you're ever stuck on like one of those puzzles, for instance, Atreus will like tell you, oh, maybe you should do this or you should do that. That's kind of how I feel Grover feels. Like there's a lot of like monologues that he has in this episode specifically that just feel like, oh, he's talking to us, the audience. It's not him talking to Percy, it's talking to us so we understand. A lot of that. And I think the reason that is so apparent is, given that this show is only going to be 8 episodes, and if you even look at the books, right, we're in episode 3 and we're really far into the episode, or we're really far into where the book is already in only 3 episodes. So when you look at that, Grover is kind of sidelined and really until the end of the episode, and that's very apparent. But that's another part of Grover's character that I want to talk about throughout this episode, is he's kind of just used as a joke, right? Like up until like the final scene or two, he's really just a joke. He's just shown as being this weird guy who's kind of useless to the story right now. That becomes really apparent with that character. But let's kind of get back on track here. So we see this last scene with Percy and Luke before he leaves the camp, and it's Luke giving Percy these shoes with wings. And I gotta say, the CGI done on the wings of the shoe are fantastic. I thought that was something that really needed to be pointed out, because it looks stunning. And that's something, again, that continues in this episode, is that everything looks pretty good, right? For the most part, I think just the design of like Medusa's lair, for instance, or Medusa's like area is great. I think everything just looks really good. So this kind of gets us to this part where the 3 are about to set off. They meet at Thalia's tree. I've kind of heard it pronounced both ways, so not sure the way that it's pronounced. So if you guys want to let me know down. I'm going to go with the way I always said it is Thalia. I know the show's going with Thalia, and that's probably the way it is, given that Rick is, part of it. So I'll try to stick with the Thalia, the way the show did it. But they meet at her tree, and instantly we just get Annabeth being so unlikable, talking down to Percy and all of these things. And one thing I really liked about this episode, it was a major theme, so I want to bring it up here because I don't want to keep talking about it over and over again throughout the episode, is there's a common theme in this episode, the episode before, that the gods, they don't really seem to be like this good force. They have done a lot of actions that seem rather questionable. Not communicating with their parents, not claiming certain people. Like, you don't know if you're going to be claimed. We even see with Medusa's story, one of my favorite aspects of her character is they make her a little bit more sympathetic. They make her someone that we understand her background quite a lot. And it makes our characters have to question, what are the gods really up to, right? Like, it seems like Medusa was kind of a victim caught in the wrath of the gods. So yeah, I think that's an interesting theme, and I really love that because it ties into this book specifically really, really well. So I'm glad that they've kind of done that quite a lot. The one thing I don't like that they haven't done, it's not like a complaint really, but it's something I think they could have done, is the whole idea of like why Percy is being claimed, right? Like that's a really big part of the book, and it's something that Percy has to struggle with internally, is like Poseidon claims Percy really just to use him, right? As a tool to fix this war from, not happening between Poseidon and Zeus. And that's a whole big plot point or the Percy Jackson books, and not really present here, but I don't think it's a big point, right? But we see our group, and again, Annabeth just being very unlikable, always talking down to Percy, being very antagonistic, ordering him around. Even when we get to this bus scene when they finally have left camp, it's just Annabeth saying, you guys are going to follow what I'm doing or else. And it's like, okay, Annabeth, we get you're experienced, but this is just, it just makes her very unlikable. She just comes off as she knows everything. She knows better than everyone, and that we should just blindly listen to her, and that she is this character that is just awful. Like, she's just awful. Every scene she's on screen. But at this point, she interacts with the Furies again when she's going to buy supplies for them. We have this little scuffle on the bus, and there's, a part of this where the Fury basically is asking Annabeth to give up Percy, which kind of a weird scene, given that we know the prophecy that the Oracle said that Percy was going to be the one that was going to bring back the lightning bolt to Zeus, or at least get it, and all of that. And so when you're looking at this, you're going, okay, this doesn't make any sense. And Annabeth, I guess, probably realizes that, but it's supposed to be this different moment where it's like, oh, Annabeth is showing trust and faith to Percy. And so, yeah, it does do that, but at the same time, it's kind of illogical, and Annabeth probably sees that. But we see this scuffle, and eventually Percy and Annabeth and Grover all escape, and we see Annabeth actually kill one of the Furies, or I guess send it down to Tartarus. Again, that plot or that point of the story hasn't really been explored too much. Like, how do monsters actually like what happens when they are killed and turn to ash or whatever? Hasn't really been explored too much on the show, but that's more or less what ends up happening. So all of this happens. They end up in this forest, and it's a satyr trail and all of that. And this is when I think one of the most bad and good scenes of the entire show happens, because on one part of it, we get actually some interesting development for Grover here, where Grover was actually part of this mission with Annabeth and Luke and Thalia, or Thalia, or Thalia, however you say her name. I'm sorry if I'm messing that up, guys. I hope that's not bugging you guys too much. Try my best. But he was actually with them, and he actually failed, right? So his second test was actually Percy, and he never ended up telling that to, Percy, which is interesting given that they were talking about it earlier in the episode. So again, it builds that, should Percy be trusting Grover? And that's something that's really in the back of Percy's mind the entire episode, is how does he trust these people given the prophecy says a friend is going to betray him? And Percy doesn't have many friends. Think about that, right? Doesn't have any friends. There's a limited pool of people that he believes could betray him. And so I really, really enjoy that part of it. But the problem is the writers, when they're finally building some tension towards Grover's character and some development, they interrupt it with Grover smelling hamburgers, and we start the Medusa plot. So that part of it was good, and they cut it off short. They should have kept going with it. We actually finally had something that made Grover a character and interesting to explore. Hopefully we get more of that in the future. Maybe because, we only have 8 episodes where it's really rushed, but Grover so far, episode 4 is the midpoint of the show. So I'm really going to start judging it a lot more critically, but we need to see Grover have more of that. We need more of Grover to fill his character. But the worst part of this conversation is the stuff between Percy and Annabeth. It's just horrible. I mean, we see Annabeth constantly talking down to Percy. Percy is a kid that he's almost died, right? He is someone that is not used to this lifestyle. He's been in it less than a week. And Annabeth is talking down to him, saying, we can't call back Camp Half-Blood. And he's like, Percy doesn't understand what that means. And also, there's this really awful scene where Percy just, He doesn't know, but he says to Annabeth, like, let's call your mom for help, right? She's Athena. Percy doesn't know that the gods and the goddesses or whatever don't communicate with their children at all. Like, he doesn't know that. No one's told him that. And Annabeth basically acts like she just got called like a racial slur, or he killed her puppy or something. Like, she's just like, I can't even believe you just asked that. It's like, we understand why Annabeth maybe would have a reaction like that, but she just lacks any type of empathy, understanding of anyone else around her. It's always about her and what is she feeling. And then she throws that back in Percy's face. Like, Percy was asking a very simple question. And that's something we've constantly seen throughout with Percy and Annabeth's relationship so far in the first 3 episodes. Like, Percy asks a question. Annabeth either responds with, he's dumb, he just doesn't get an answer, it's something else, or she just starts yelling at him for some reason. And that's why Annabeth is so unlikable, because that's not Annabeth. That's not the character of Annabeth. And I'm harping on this so much because one of the biggest controversies going into the show was the changing of the source material when it comes to how the characters look like. And one of my big points was why I wasn't worried going into the show is because I thought they were going to represent the character of Annabeth correctly, right? Rick had a lot of support for the actual, actor who was playing the character. And my biggest thing I said is, this now puts a lot of pressure on this character to accurately represent the character of Annabeth. That is yet to happen. This character is nowhere near Annabeth. Annabeth is actually quite understanding. She is someone that's very smart. She understands these. Now, she does have the Annabeth side that we see in the show, where she can be very standoff. She can withhold information. She can be someone that is a brick wall. And so one of the big parts of it is like Percy trying to break that down to where Annabeth is more open, more, all those things. But that isn't to say that she doesn't care. Like, it's just so frustrating to watch this character of Annabeth, who is your favorite character, be the most unlikable character in the show. By far. She is the worst character in the show. It's not close. And so I'm going to try to not harp on this continuously, but as we go forward, it only, it gets better because she's not on talking as much. Like, that's how I'll say it. Because we focus to another character. At this point of the show, the midpoint, it's really been focusing on these 3 characters and their dynamic. And it's been by far some of the weakest of the first 3 episodes. And yeah, so that's not worked for me at all. I don't like the dynamic between really Annabeth and Percy and Grover. Like, Percy and Grover, they have some things that, like, I can see that there is some bonding there. I can see that there's some growth between the 2 characters. I can see where there's some sort of direction for them. Whereas Annabeth and Percy, I don't know why the 2 haven't killed each other yet. Now, we do try to fix that towards the end of the episode, and that's why I'm a little bit more, I don't know, I have a little bit more faith that maybe they can fix that, but so far, horrible job of the character of Annabeth. But that gets us to the Medusa's lair stuff. So the 3 travel towards these hamburgers. This food happens quite differently in the book. Let's just address this here. In the book, it is like a surprise that it's Medusa to our core, right? Grover kind of has some suspicions that it's some sort of monster, something not good. And then Annabeth and Percy in the book are kind of lured in because they're hungry, right? They don't have money for food after they lose their kind of their supplies when they get attacked by the Furies. They're really drawn in. They're tempted. They're desperate. And so the show does a different way of doing this. The show decides to go with, hey, everybody knows who Medusa is. We can't really hide it. This has already been done on the movie. It's been done in the book. Let's just change it, right? And I'm not that upset about this change. I thought I was going to be more upset by the change when I saw it initially, and I actually liked the way the show did it. Given the way we've seen them do a couple scenes that have kind of changed some things and been more crucial, again, my favorite scene of this entire show so far is the conversation Sally and Percy have when he was younger talking about his name. And that now comes back into the story. It's such a pivotal moment because it's really put into Percy. And so when you come to the situation when we meet Medusa and a Fury that has been stalking them, we're really between 2 evils. One is going to try and kill you, and the other one is inviting you to come in to feed you and protection against this Fury. And so Percy, remembering this line from his mother, about, not all monsters that look like that, or not people that look like monsters are monsters. We shouldn't judge off of physical appearance or what possibly they could be. And so I like this idea because we build Medusa as an actual person with motivations, who she was, who she is now. And it's great because it makes our characters think. Now, one thing I didn't like that I did find was a complaint. It's like Percy basically says he trusts her, which was like, that doesn't make any sense, right? Like he should be giving her the benefit of the doubt, but not fully trusting her. And so that is a part of it that I was like, okay, it's a little minor gripe. I don't mind it too much, but it was something I just picked up on when I was watching the episode. But so we're inside Medusa's like house or whatever, and we get this really interesting conversation because in my opinion, Medusa, outside of like Percy, is the best written character the show has put on screen so far. This is a character that has motivations as to why she wouldn't like the gods. It's fully explained in her background as to what she wants to do. Like, why is she going to say the things she says, right? Like, why does she relate to Annabeth, right? Like, because she's sitting here going, oh, I used to be just like you, Annabeth. I worshipped Athena all the time and all these things, and I never got any messages back. Again, building on the fact of the gods are not great. They don't treat people well. And all of a sudden, Poseidon came over, and she kind of, it seems like, either fell in love with him or lusted after him, and the two got together, and Athena pretty much cursed her. But the thing I hate about this entire scene is because Annabeth is supposed to be a smart character. The show has established that she's smart, or that she's supposed to be smart anyway. The book, she's one of the smartest characters, and she starts actively antagonizing Medusa in her own lair. And I'm just sitting here, I'm going, this is not Annabeth. Annabeth would never do that. Annabeth is someone that is a tactician. She's someone that's smart. She understands these things. And here she is trying to get Medusa to attack them. Like, the comments she's making almost seem like lines for Percy. But that's besides the point. It's just, again, making Annabeth unlikable. But the whole time, I really like that Medusa becomes this character that we sympathize with. We understand this character. But what's really interesting is the mental games she's playing with our crew, because in reality, we don't know what we should trust from what she's saying. All of us, the whole audience, know Medusa is going to attack at some point, but building her up actually as a character, not just a monster, is interesting because she's playing mental games with them. Whereas maybe she is telling the truth about certain things, she's also playing mental games. She says that her condition, her being able to petrify people or turn people to stone, is a gift, that she uses it to stop bullies because she doesn't like them. And that's interesting because that ties in directly with Percy. Percy doesn't like bullies. He doesn't like people messing around with his friends. He tries to stand up for Grover on multiple occasions in the first episode. That's great because all of this is tying into episode 1 and what we get with Percy's background and who he is as a character. And that's why I think Percy's so well written, because all of this directly applies to Percy. And so it also works for developing Annabeth as well, because Annabeth is what Medusa is claiming she used to be. Someone that blindly follows her mother, says she loves her mother, even though they've never hung out, for instance. They don't have dinner. They don't talk. It's a one-sided relationship, right? And so that's great as well. And I find it so fascinating is that all of the development we've actually gotten for Annabeth's character up to this point of the episode has come from other characters. Luke, Grover, Medusa. Annabeth herself as a character is just so poorly written from the standpoint of her as an actual character. But regardless, we eventually then see Medusa and Percy, by themselves, because Medusa asks for some help in the kitchen, obviously to try and manipulate Percy some more. And we have this whole conversation once again that I think is very interesting. Medusa's saying the gods play games with people, right? Just like how Percy's mother, she fell in love with Poseidon and Poseidon left. He didn't come back. He didn't help her. He didn't do any of those things. The gods are monsters. I love that because it's a spin on what the classic tale is. The gods are the good guys. The monsters are the bad guys. And so it makes you think a little bit. It's something that Percy can sit here and think about. But also Medusa plays on Percy's worst fears because she knows, because she asks if she can trust them. That's the biggest point of this, is trust. This episode is all about trust. And Percy sitting there going, I don't know, can I? That's a great thing, because Medusa, not only is she manipulating him, but she's also making him think about things to progress his character, which is what all great villains should do. And so eventually we get to this horror moment where the coin turns and we go to Medusa turning into the villain, saying, I can get rid of those problems for you. We get the scene, we get then a cut to Percy is basically left. He's with Annabeth and Grover as they're like in this basement, and the horror element of this part of the episode is fantastic. I mean, the music is bone chilling. It really brings up that atmosphere of they're trapped, and the Medusa is this really awesome figure of mythology. As everyone knows, she's one of the most known figures in Greek mythology. We see the fire light up the battlefield, and as it goes, we see all these statues, these people that she's turned to stone. It builds the horror. We slowly hear Medusa come to where they are. I love all of this. All of this is really well shot. It looks beautiful. It's one of the, it is, in my opinion, I talked about this in the first recording, it is my favorite shot. It's not my favorite scene, but it's my favorite shot visually. It just looks fantastic. And so we see Grover, once again, just being the weird dude that's irrelevant to the story for the most part, fly off. He just flies off with Luke's wing shoes. He'll come back a little bit later in a really awkward scene that reminds me quite a lot of Game of Thrones Season 8. If you guys know, you know, but he comes basically screaming back into the shot. Just very weird. But we see this whole fight with Medusa, and it doesn't last very long. It's not really a fight at all. It's more like, you know, Medusa's coming at them. And I love that Medusa plays mental games, right? It seems like the way that she deals with people is she doesn't exactly use her physical conditions or physical capabilities like turning people to stone, is she breaks people down so much to the point where they almost allow her to stone them, more or less. I love that, because it reminds me of like an actual snake with, say, like a petrified little rabbit or a baby rabbit that a snake would go after. Really the way Medusa plays this. And it's so great because we've only seen Medusa for a few minutes on screen, and she already has so much going on for her character as a villain. And the way this is wrapped up to me, I don't know, me and my friend Logan talked about this, and I didn't like this at all. I thought it was very questionable. It's like Annabeth puts her invisibility cap on Medusa. And so the question I have here is like, how does that work? So it's implied in the show, but it's never really talked about after when they kill her or anything like that. But is that they put the invisibility on, and what I'm getting at is assuming that because Percy can't see her, Annabeth or Grover can't see her eyes, they can't be turned to stone. And I had a bit of a problem with that because, like, it doesn't seem to make sense. I was under the illusion, now I could be wrong, so if you guys think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I'd love to be educated on this. Say it nicely, I would hope. But that Medusa has to look you in the eyes, and that's it. So her being invisible wouldn't matter, but regardless of the fact, I just think the alternative, the way it was done in both the movie and the book, is just better. The traditional story of Medusa's defeat, of whether that's using the reflection of a shield, or like in the movie it was like an iPad or not an iPad, an iPhone, or an iPhone or an iPod, I believe. And then in the book it was like, I think it was like a crystal spear or something. It was some sort of spear that, like, it was some sort of like circular like globe thing or something that you could like look behind you. And so I thought that was way better than what they did here. It was very questionable. And my friend Logan, again, brings up a good point. He played devil's advocate on this, but I think you're in a lose-lose situation with this on how you deal with Medusa, because she's such a well-known figure. So many people know about it. Is like, how do you kill Medusa? Like, either way, somebody was going to be like, oh, we've seen this already. You know, it's traditional. You see the reflection, you kill Medusa. It's kind of like the Spider-Man origin thing, where it's like people kind of got tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. So it's like, you're going to have people complain that way, and you're going to have people like me that complain the way they did it. So they were kind of in a lose-lose situation, so I do feel bad on that. I just personally think you go with the less questionable route. There's a lot of questions that weren't really answered on that, but whatever. So we move through this, and again, what we see is Medusa's dead. Percy cuts her head off really quick. One thing I've noted is the action in this in this episode, and I think in the series as a whole, they've really quickly done it, right? Like, a lot of these scenes in the book are much more expanded upon. The attack on the bus with the Furies is a very heavily expanded upon battle scene, more or less. All three Furies are attacking. Everyone kind of gets their moment with Percy, Grover, and Annabeth. They all do their thing. Medusa thing is the same thing. In this, it's like, it's over very quickly. And I think that is really due because it's only like 8 episodes. They're trying to speed through it. When you're only having 35-minute episodes around there, you've got to speed through some things. And I think that's been disappointing for me as a fan who knows, like, the same as like the Game of Thrones seasons. There's more they could have done, but they chose not to, which is, very unfortunate. But we see them then use the Medusa head to deal with the Fury and all of that. And so we then come to the next part of this, and it's like, we've won and all this is going well. And Annabeth just has to ruin it again. She instantly starts arguing with Percy, saying, oh, what was she talking about? That Sally is still alive in the underworld and that she could help Percy. And so it comes out this whole thing, and I, again, just don't care about this plot that they've introduced. I think it doesn't make any sense. They've made this really big deal about Sally being in the underworld, not telling Percy, or Percy not telling other people. It's like, it's so simple. It's like, Sally is in the underworld. You have to go to the underworld. Why not take out 2 birds with 1 stone? Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand. Like, Annabeth, from the best that I can understand from Annabeth's character, she is caring about this because she thinks it could distract Percy from their real goal. But I'm sitting here going, you can do both. You're going to be in the underworld regardless. And so I hate this plot because Annabeth then, after all this, where Percy basically saves their lives, he's the one that kills Medusa, kills the Fury, or stones the Fury, and she's still complaining about stuff that in reality is not hers to be talking about. She is the one that consistently withholds information from Percy. Capture the flag. She gave him no information at all. She brushed him off. When they get on the bus, disregards him completely. In the forest, doesn't tell him any information, doesn't explain things to him, just scolds him, talks down to him. It's so frustrating because Annabeth just consistently complains over and over and over again, talking down to Percy. There's just no moment where I'm like, wow, Annabeth is a likable character. Wow, Annabeth, that was something really cool that you did. Or Annabeth, that was something that like was very heartfelt. You could see a growing bond there. It's just never, it's not there. It's not there. And so what I think would have been better for this scene, because we then see Grover interrupt their arguing and saying enough. Like, this has gone too far. I love this, by the way. They finally give Grover something to do that makes sense and is relevant to why he is here with these three, with Annabeth and Percy. So we'll get to that in a second. But the way I think I would have done this scene to make it make more sense with the character of Annabeth so far and to start reverting that is have Percy just go off on Annabeth. Like asking why she's always, degrading him or not giving him any information or treating him like he's less than. All these things, just have Percy, his emotions just break down. All of this weight has been put on his shoulders, all of this, and just put it on Annabeth because of the way she's been treating him. And then have that kind of revert, right? Have Annabeth be like, with Grover's help, right? Still have Grover, intrude, talk about both sides like he does in the normal episode. And then have Annabeth maybe like talking about why she does those things, because maybe she doesn't trust him, because she thinks that he will get her killed or all these other things. Have there be some sort of development in which Annabeth reflects on how she's been treating Percy and think about that. And then on the same wavelength, have Percy think about the way he's been going about things, not being open with them, maybe about his mother, and, saying that, yeah, he's not ready for this, but he's trying to do so and he wants to do better. Like, have the characters develop and grow closer together. What we get is fine. Like, I like it for Grover's character where he's like, you guys just got to stop doing this and, telling why each side does what. And, we get to this moment with Percy, which is great for Percy specifically, is what is he afraid of? And that kind of loops back to why he chooses Annabeth and Grover, but it shows again, he's struggling with this idea of trust. And that's great. And we see, again, this moment does kind of work. It does kind of pull them together when they start saying, yeah, Medusa was going to have me betray you guys. And Annabeth saying, yeah, the Fury wanted me to betray you guys. And they didn't. That's good because that's going to bring them together, start building some of that trust. And all that's pretty good, right? I did like the ending part of that conversation, but I think there was more that should have been explored there that would have helped these characters grow closer together. And that's my biggest problem, is that we're not seeing that between Annabeth and Percy for the most part. Or if it is, they're skipping steps, and I don't believe it, right? And so we get all this, and again, there's some great stuff here also with Grover seeing his uncle, right? Seeing someone he looked up to. And it's really a good growing point, because he notes, like, his uncle didn't look afraid. That's something that Book Grover, again, we see this more with Book Grover. He's someone that lacks confidence, can be very scared. Haven't really seen that a lot with show Grover, but it's something that Grover can think about in the show, where it's like, you know, I've got to do what my uncle did. Even facing Medusa, he doesn't seem scared. That's a good moment there for Grover. And that's why I talk about the end of the episode. We finally got a lot more for Grover that's impactful, that helps develop him as a character. And one of my biggest complaints of episode 1 and 2, just wish we had gotten more of that for Annabeth as well. And so the episode ends out with what to do with Medusa's head. They end up sending it to Olympus. And as my friend actually pointed out, I didn't know this after watching the episode, but I didn't know this was Hermes that was delivering this box up to Olympus. I figured it was, given in the book, like, this is his company and all that, and it's mentioned in the episode. But I wasn't sure if this was actually Hermes or like one of his employees or anything. They don't actually mention it. It's only seen in the subtitles. So again, that is who it is. That is Hermes. And we do get a little tease of Olympus and where it is. So that is my review for episode 3. Again, sorry for the shorter version and not being able to have my friend on the episode for this week. Hopefully we'll get that figured out for next week, given that I'm not an idiot and don't screw up my recording next time. And it'll be a lot longer, right? The original recording was almost double the length of this video. So yeah, stick with me, and we'll be going into episode 4. I really hope we finally get something for Annabeth. I hate seeing her not done injustice, really. And let me know, like, what did you guys think of episode 3? Do you agree with what I said? Do you not agree with what I said? Let me know. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, open for discussion. I love hearing your guys' thoughts, because, again, I know, like, I am someone that it can be very critical of things I really enjoy. It's the same thing with House of the Dragon. A lot of my viewers from that channel will know that. Rings of Power, very critical of that, but that was more because the show is bad. And this show, I'm going to be, kind of critical as well, because I want the show to be as good as possible. I want this show to really succeed. And so, I'm enjoying watching it, right? Like that, I have a lot of criticism for it, but I've enjoyed watching it. Again, 7 to an 8 out of 10 on how I rate things, I think is pretty good, right? That's good. Like that is enough to keep me entertained to watch it. So yeah, I enjoy watching it, and I hope you guys do too. Be making some more content. We'll kind of be having a mini like breakdown throughout the week of some of the things I liked, some of the things I didn't like, and what Percy Jackson can improve. So thank you guys all for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.